When I was with Air America, I had a chance to work with Mike Papantonio, who's an attorney, but that doesn't really tell the story. He about 4 years ago, he became president of the National Trial Lawyers Association. If there's one organization in the United States that the right-wingers would like to destroy, and I would imagine Mike is going to have to be on guard now that Trump is in office. But the one organization that these people would love to just gut, burn down, destroy, and kick into the sea would be the National Trial Lawyers Association. Because the National Trial Lawyers Association is a very activist group, and they don't like to see people kicked around, especially by corporations, and they do a lot of intense work. PAP, that's what he's called, Mike Papantonio. I call him Mike. A lot of people call him Pap. I don't call him Pap because, I don't know, it just makes me think of pregnancy and stuff. So, or gynecologist. Well, I'm sorry, Kathy, but I've been through all this with you. We've had 20 pretty.
You just compared our guest to a test for cervical cancer.
No, I didn't. I said it. Oh, never mind. He probably hung up by now, right? Pap has gotten some of the most prestigious awards reserved by says here by the Public Justice Foundation, the American Association for Justice, and the National Trial Lawyers Association. In other words, he's an ass-kicking dude. Mike Papantonio is an attorney. He's a senior partner of a firm in Florida, and he doesn't take shit from nobody. He also, by the way, is the host of the nationally syndicated radio show Ring of Fire. You've heard me refer to them. If you haven't been to their website, you should go there, ringoffire.com, I think it is, ringoffire.com. All sorts of intense pieces to read about what some of the more evil sons of bitches are doing around this country. With Mike Papantonio, Ring of Fire, as you know, our good friend Sam Cedar, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. That's about all I got to say. Oh, yeah, the reason he's on is because now he's gone and written a book. Another book, an ass-kicking, right, Mike? It's called Law and Disorder.
How are you, Mike?
I didn't mean to compare you to
I've been compared to a lot of.
No. See, I'm sitting here now. I broke out in a blush because of what Kathy said. No, I'm just saying. When I hear the word Pap, that's why I've always called you Mike.
Yeah, I think people have time. They have a time with the name Papantonio, so they just shortened it to Pap.
I hear that. Well, one little story real quick. We were all going on a cruise one time, Progressive Voices Cruise. It was organized by John Sinton, who was the first president of Air America. And this is when things were kind of breaking apart at that organization. We're trying to get our feet, so to speak, and came up with the idea of a cruise, get the hell away from everybody, and Papantonio was going to go along. At last minute, he couldn't go. I got his room. Molly and Kathy and I got his room, which was by the way, Mike, it was a great stateroom on that ship. I'm telling you.
I'm glad it was good to you.
Otherwise, they would, I was booked down where the engines are, I think, but that was a lot of fun. So, Law and Disorder is the book here, and frankly, to be honest with you, Mike, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I have skimmed through it, and it looks like one of those books that is nonstop action. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think I think the reason it's selling so well, Mike, is because they've teamed it up with Grisham. Grisham has a new book out called Whistler. And now, when you go to Barnes and Noble or Amazon or any places they sell books, they usually put the two together. And I think that's why it's doing well. But the idea of the book was, we've been at this business for so long. Mm-hmm. You much longer than me. But the frustrating thing about what we do sometimes, I think, from my standpoint, is people don't really hear the backstories on much.
Yeah.
For example, they read a headline, maybe top of the fold of a newspaper, and they don't really hear the backstories. This book, although it's a fiction, it's based on actual cases, and everything in there actually happened except for the murder. And so I think that the reason that I guess the reason it's doing well, another reason is people read it and they say, "Gee, I really didn't know how dysfunctional the FDA is." That
Right.
is part of it, where the story about the FDA drives the story. I didn't know how dysfunctional the SEC is. I really believed that it was some governmental regulatory agency looking out for me from the standpoint of the EPA, and they get a sense that not just that that's not true, but they actually hear more details on how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
But in there's a story, Mike, and the story is the entertainment. But they come away from that book, and this is the great thing about the reviews on it, is you come away from the book and you've been entertained, but at the same time you've learned something maybe you didn't about the backstory to the politics.
Right.
It's really written more for progressives. The neocon nuts really don't like the book. The only bad reviews I really get are from somebody who says, I just hated him talking about politics in the book, even though the politics are absolutely true.
Right. Well, you can understand why they would hate it. And by the way, just so folks know, you're from the same part of Florida that Joe Scarborough's from, right?
Well, Joe Scarborough used to be my law partner. People don't realize.
Oh, really?
That.
I'll
And
be
then,
damned.
Yeah, it didn't work out well for him.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah, and so he came out of the stories. He came out of Congress and came to work for me at this law firm. We were, this is very much a national law firm. We do.
Right.
We're in Pensacola, but the cases we handle are from L.A. to New York, and he wanted to do that, but it just sometimes, it doesn't work out for everybody. So we really pushed him towards moving into TV and political TV. And Phil Griffin, of course, with MSNBC, fell in love with Joe Scarborough, and I used to do the show with him early on. It was called Scarborough Country, and the reason they asked me to stop doing it is because I was trying to tell stories about the pharmaceutical industry. I was trying to tell the backstories about the EPA and how dysfunctional some of these corporations are, how much damage they cause us. And I was just invited not to tell this story.
Yeah, right.
So my time with Scarborough Country didn't last long.
Well, the main character here, the person that drives the narrative, is a character, Nicholas Dichotomous. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Now he's Greek, right?
He's Greek, yeah. He's actually a composite, Mike. He's a composite of a lot of attorneys I've worked with over the last 35 years, and I haven't tried to make him into something that that he's not. He has plenty of barnacles all over him, but at the heart of him, he's a progressive that has a tool, and the tool is the ability to be able to take the Pfizers and the Mercks and the Dow Chemicals to court and tell and actually expose the stories. Mm-hmm. And after doing that myself for 35 years, I've realized that might be the last line in the sand. If you take regulatory away, which we don't have anymore, you take the courts away, which Obama, for example, did a horrible job even appointing federal judges, not because he couldn't. There was plenty he could have done the first 2 years. He appointed 92 federal judges, and instead he wanted to reach across the aisle and make nice with with the other side. And so you say, okay, well, regulatory is going to take care of us. If they don't, courts are going to take care of us, and if they don't, the media is going to take care of us. Well, none of that's true anymore. The media is owned and operated by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for all practical purposes. The courts are run by the neo-nuts that put them there, and regulatory is owned and operated by corporate America. So the line in the sand nowadays really has become the lawyer who's willing to take on the corporation, that's willing to spend $8 to $10 million to go to war with somebody like Merck or Pfizer or whoever it might be.
Now, you, not your character in the book, but you yourself, you were involved deeply, if I'm not mistaken, in that massive lawsuit against the tobacco industry that resulted in billions going to various states. Is that correct?
Yeah, we wrote the first legislation for that right here in Florida. And it started here, and because again, it was one of those situations, regulatory wouldn't do anything, courts wouldn't do anything, media, they really didn't do anything. And so we just decided the best way to go after them is take them to court. And it started here and then moved to Mississippi with a lawyer there and then a Ron Motley out of South Carolina, and it took off step by step. It worked well.
What I found interesting, there were so many Southern attorneys who were involved in that settlement with tobacco, which in the South, of course, is where this stuff is grown.
Yeah. I think it has to do with it's an odd thing, but having been the president of the National Trial Lawyers, some of the more accomplished trial lawyers come from the South, and I don't know, demographically or social.
I think what I think it is. I think it ties into the fact that you have written Law and Disorder. Attorneys in the South, like a lot of people in the South, are more storytellers. That's how they get their point across. Tell the story to a jury rather than just beat the hell out of them with facts and numbers and figures. Just tell the story, and which I think any good trial lawyer, that's what he or she wants to reach, is the ability to tell that story and get inside the heads of that jury. That's my
maybe some truth to that, Mike.
Yeah, my take.